You will lose your country. Again, it's not about Democrats. It's about all of us.
So you're absolutely convinced he's...
I'm absolutely convinced.
2028.
You've seen it. He tried to steal the last election. He's trying to rig it in plain sight.
Wow, getting your excuses in early for losing Gavin Newsom, are you? Yes, that is exactly what is happening. We got to bring you an update today on the redistricting battle that California has now famously entered with Texas. Because while Gavin Newsom uses the situation for extensive self-promotion, right, he's trying to show the Democrat base that, hey, I'm the one who's willing to actually fight back against the Republicans, and obviously trying to launch his 2028 campaign off of this popularity among left-wingers. Secretly and quietly, he's actually dooming the Democrat Party for the sake of his own ego. Because as we've been warning you time and time again, every single time we discuss redistricting, in a mutually assured destruction scenario, that is not a winner for Democrats, right? Essentially, what Gavin has done here is opened Pandora's box. And why do we say that? Because when you break down the math, and you're assuming here that now because California has entered, there's about to be this nationwide clash and back and forth over redistricting, that the math there does not actually produce a win for Democrats. It produces a win for Republicans, right? In a total gerrymandered situation, Republicans beat the Democrats in House seats. And why is that? Because as we have been breaking down, Republicans have more states in this country. Even when you add in the population apportionment and the census, we still ultimately have more. But most importantly here, the key fact to remember is that when you consider the extent that Democrats already gerrymandered in the 2020 census, they barely have any room to grow. It is the Republicans, of course, who can do a lot more to wipe out the, I guess you could say, almost fake representation that Democrats have in this country. And that in mind, in today's video, we got the news that after Gavin Newsom, again, opened Pandora's box, got into this fight, decided that redistricting is not some small thing, that it's just going to stick to Texas, it's going to become this gigantic nationwide battle because of him. Now we see other Republican states joining in the effort and confirming now, not just speculating, confirming indeed that they are set to do so. And needless to say, we're going to break down that math for you and explain why at the very end of this, left-wingers are simply wrong. They fail to grasp the fact that they actually are the minority in this country. They're not losing because of so-called gerrymandering. They're actually winning currently in the 2020 post because of gerrymandering. And all of that here is about to change. So Democrats, as you cheer on Gavin Newsom for fighting back, in the scenario where the Republicans fully go through with everything right now, they're threatening retaliation, be sure to thank your beloved 2028 candidate. This, of course, comes off the back of the same exact news that just today it is now official, where Greg Abbott has signed the new Texas U.S. House maps into law, so you can say goodbye to the current congressional seats of Jasmine Crockett and Representative Al Green, but the story certainly does not stop there. We'll tell you all about it. First, though, do us a favor, guys. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are almost at 500K subs. Help us get there. Smash that red button. And with that said, so update number one is, I guess, a victory for Newsom, because as we covered, the California Supreme Court, some Republicans were bringing a lawsuit. The liberal Supreme Court, quite unsurprisingly, has approved Newsom to go ahead with this special election, so that is indeed happening. But as Kevin Kiley points out, there's a whole lot wrong that the court obviously ignored on this redistricting battle, although I'm not all that surprised. But just to give you an idea of the fraud that Newsom is selling. So, number one, the changes to the map are not temporary like they're saying. They last until the next census when another map is required. They are not changes. It is a totally new map. The new map is not a response to Texas. The language conditioning, its enactment on Texas adopting a new map was removed. So now they're just gerrymandering, right? It's not about retaliation. The Citizens Redistricting Commission is not mentioned as the creator of the current maps, giving the impression that Texas somehow messed with California's own maps. The Citizen Commission is supposed to be directed to draw new maps after the next census, which they are already required to do, giving the impression that the measure is pro-independent redistricting, which it is not. By the way, this is something I brought up a big concern about. And this is, by the way, what California does on almost all of their ballot propositions is they manipulate the language. Very infamously, back to 2018, there was a proposition to repeal the highly unpopular gas tax. But guess what the then California Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, did? He changed the language, the wording there to say, oh, we're going to repeal funding for infrastructure, blah, 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 something about gas tax, but it's not clearly said. And then what happens? The idiotic, illiterate voters in that state voted to keep their gas tax by, I believe it was a relatively narrow margin, but still that's what happened. And it would appear they're doing the same thing, right? So they're going to manipulate the language here to make sure that the special election can pass. I would encourage the California GOP, bring every legal challenge you can to say, no, you cannot deceptively word the ballot proposition, but we'll see what happens there, obviously. The map will define district boundaries for representatives through January of 2033, not 2030. So it's actually going beyond for some reason. The cost of a few $1 million is wildly understated. Currently, they're estimating the special election somehow, some way will cost $250 million to taxpayers. The measure does not establish a policy supporting independent commissions nationwide. Its only effect is on redistricting commissions to push out California's. And obviously, they even took out the words here to describe the gerrymandering as partisan, despite the fact that it was obviously partisan. But with all of that in mind, I'm not here to complain. Unlike the Democrats, right? I'm not here to cry that, oh, you're playing the game unfair, because we expected this, okay? We're not scared of the fact you're retaliating. We fully expect you to play dirty. You already played dirty in the 2020 census, hence why Republicans are now fighting back and retaliating actually against you. And ultimately, this is a power game by both sides. Yes, indeed, it is highly partisan. The only question is, how do we win, right? That's ultimately what this is all about. And that's why I say, okay, California moving ahead. All right, it is what it is. Again, not surprised. But we know that this is not a winning situation for California, right? They're the ones here who should be leaving well enough alone, not us. Despite the fact that Gavin constantly said, F around and find out, Texas, you're going to really be screwed over, Republicans. Nope. Because as the Washington Post even reported earlier this month, current reports indicate that the Republican Party and President Trump could stand to gain up to 14 seats based on redistricting before 2026, according to the Washington Post. Texas and Florida could be 5 seats each. Obviously, Texas, I should say now, is adding that 5. Ohio can be 2. Indiana and Missouri, 1 seat each. These are the plans. Now, Republicans in each state obviously must carry them out. So California is currently adding 5. Texas added 5, so that cancels out. But keep in mind, as we're going to talk about today, in Florida, you could add up to 5. Let's say even realistically 2 to 3. Ohio's going to add 2, Indiana 1, Missouri 1. Do the math there. California cannot do enough to fight back against Republican redistricting efforts. Now, the question might be, what if other blue states join in? The problem is other blue states cannot join in because, as we've covered extensively thus far, they already gerrymandered to their ceiling, right? Democrat states in the 2020 census were already heavily gerrymandered. And here is a prime example of that we're well familiar with. The infamous, right, Illinois congressional map. What's currently being reported that despite Illinois Democrats threatening to redistrict their state to join Gavin Newsom in fighting Texas, guess what? They cannot. Because if that map got any more ridiculous, it would not hold up in court, right? It would be strucken down. They cannot gerrymander this, obviously, right? This thing right here any further without, by the way, also jeopardizing existing House Democrats. And I'm going to guess those existing House Democrats are not going to want to give up their seats, right? So it's actually screwing them over. So yes, indeed, California and Gavin Newsom's redistricting war is already flopping. But of course, Florida, Ohio, Missouri, Indiana, these are the big states to, of course, watch. Now, that said, I've been calling the entire time, hey, don't just say you're going to redistrict and maybe you're considering it. We need to see action because clearly, again, Texas was one thing. Then now California is joining in. It's a mutually assured destruction, right? Both sides are doing this to each other. So we need to not stand down in the battle because, again, if we don't stand down, we win. So that said, we just got the announcement here this week, very recently, that major Florida redistricting is going to be happening before 2026. The Florida House Speaker just announced the Congressional Redistricting Committee. Governor DeSantis said he is ready to get a map done quickly before the midterms, joining Texas. And this, of course, comes after the Florida Supreme Court upheld the ambitious GOP map that got rid of a race-based district in 2022. At least one GOP seat at the minimum is the goal here, but it could be more than that. Here is DeSantis talking about those very efforts, indeed confirming, yes, he is joining in the efforts. This is not going to be a one-off between California and Texas. Take a listen.
That doesn't happen. We still have a basis to redistrict in Florida. There's some racial gerrymandering that's still lingering that we have to correct per a recent Florida Supreme Court decision. And Sean, you know, because you're part of this, Florida in 2020 versus Florida in 2025, you're talking about a big change. So our districts are not properly apportioned. And if we were to do new districts, it would be much fairer representation for the people of Florida.
Great point, too, by the way, especially in the case of Florida, where you saw massive migration in the early 2020s off the backs of COVID and lockdowns and all that, that yes, if Florida redoes the maps, they're going to look a lot different. They're going to be a lot more Republican favorable when you look at how that state shifted by 2022 and 2024. So that's why I again here say, Gavin, great job, buddy. Because if Texas just did this and everyone forgot about it, maybe Republicans wouldn't have the strength or stamina to get further involved. But what did you do? You gave everyone an incentive. You made this national culture war battle where now there's extensive pressure on Republicans to retaliate even further. DeSantis obviously is a warrior in his state, but even you might see some more moderate, more milquetoast Republicans get involved. This is not a good situation for the Democrat Party. We further just got the announcement here today that the governor of Missouri, keep in mind this is another one of those states where Republicans are saying we could add another seat, is now about to call a special session to redraw the state's U.S. House map, which would add a Republican seat. There you go, just another example. So now Missouri is confirming they will join in on the redistricting fight. That said, at the same time, even lawmakers in Kansas, which has a Democrat governor, if I'm not mistaken, but has a obviously veto-proof Republican majority in the state legislature, are now even saying they might be interested. So add another state in joining the 2026 redistricting fight, seeking to add a Republican seat for Congress. If all of these states add up, which include Texas, Florida, Missouri, Ohio, Kansas, and others, it not only cancels out Gavin Newsom, it beats Gavin Newsom, right? And then who's going to join Gavin? New York, maybe, right? I don't know. But Illinois can't do it. Many of the other Democrat states already gerrymandered to the max. They are out of options. And guys, I repeat this again. This is something that the left-wingers simply do not understand. We've been hearing them talk so much, right? Here's a prime example, by the way, from Kyle Kulinski over at Secular Talk. We just did a video about some of these moronic Democrat influencers, you know, saying, oh, the gloves are off now, buddy. Haha, you know, the Democrats are going to fight. You know, we're the ones who are under attack here, right? You see, he can say, every blue state should eliminate every GOP seat. Now, that's not possible, but that's what he's saying. Every blue state should eliminate every single GOP seat. These a-holes don't give an F about democracy or fairness and never will. Dems need to evolve or die. No more weak BS. Follow Newsom's lead. Okay, so that sounds cool and all. 13,000 likes. All the Democrats are like, yes, we're the real majority in this country. Except you're not. Okay, because again, it's totally ridiculous to say you're going to eliminate every GOP seat, and it'd be ridiculous for Republicans in retaliation to say they're going to eliminate every Democrat seat, because that's just not how geography works. It's impossible, mathematically speaking. But even if that were the case, I want to explain this. Let's actually break this down for Kyle Kulinski and others, the exact reasons as to why Democrats would lose the redistricting battle. Now, this is an oversimplification of it, but he is also oversimplifying, saying, oh, remove every GOP seat. So let's just kind of demonstrate this based on the Electoral College, right? Again, oversimplified, not going into specific districts, but just in the Kyle Kulinski hypothetical scenario, oversimplifying it so that we can show it to you in a very easy to understand manner, why the math here does not actually add up for the Democrats. So let's just break this down. And keep in mind, Electoral College is based on number of House seats and number of senators. So while the numbers here are not exact because it's +2 to every state, this is still indicative of the representation each place gets, excluding DC, obviously, because that is not a state. So what I've done here is I've taken the current electoral college map to show you, and I've filled in blue and red every state that, to my knowledge, currently has a Republican or Democrat trifecta, right? They control the whole state legislature, and obviously every swing state. So the swing states, you know them, right? Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania. But that is also the reason why, for instance, Virginia is not in blue, because they currently have a Republican governor, Glenn Youngkin. That will probably change by next year, but that's what it is right now, right? Kansas, and actually let me take off Kentucky here so I can show you, right? I'll get rid of Kentucky. Kansas and Kentucky are obviously deep red states, but they currently have random Democrat governors, so we took them out. Okay, and that's also including the swing states, where you're going to assume the trifectas in state government are just not strong enough to do something like this. What do you notice about the math? Even when you fill this out, oversimplified, look at the numbers, right? Republicans 205 to Democrats 199. Yeah, what does that mean? Again, oversimplified. Republicans have more than Democrats in this country. But let's even go further here, right? Let's note that, first of all, a swing state that is actually red, right? Georgia has maybe very close to national elections, but has a Republican governor and a Republican trifecta in the state house and state senate. So we can also fill in Georgia in the red, technically, hypothetically, just to show you guys, right? That yes, it is considered a 3 ways red state. And even if we want to go back and forth, right? Because Michigan is a swing state, but in the state level, as I researched, it is a Democrat trifecta there. So let's also add Michigan in the blue. What do you still notice? Not only do Republicans still lead, the math gets better for us, because guess what? Georgia is a bigger state by 1 electoral vote, 1 census point, right, than Michigan. Okay? Let's also further assume here, guys, that in states like Kansas and Kentucky, right, not only do they probably likely, right, the Democrat governors, I should say, will not stay there forever, right? It's going to become a Republican trifecta sooner or later here. But also considering in a state like Kansas, you just have the veto-proof majority that would allow you to do this because it's overwhelmingly Republican. So we add in Kansas and Kentucky. Notice what you see then, right? 235 to 214 for Republicans. And let's even look at 2026, for instance, right? Let's say that Democrats flip back the governorship of Virginia and they have a trifecta. Still 235 to 227. We still lead the math here, right? And I'd even further go to look at like potential flips on both sides for 2026. So first of all, North Carolina, for instance, I don't think that's a state where you're going to see a trifecta anytime soon. It's Republican at the legislative level, but statewide, we can never manage to field good candidates for some reason. So let's say North Carolina just stays divided. Pennsylvania probably stays divided. New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, these are sort of those northeastern independent states where a lot of times they have Republican governors, but Democrat legislators or vice versa. And likely, right, you would assume they don't get involved in the redistricting stuff. So let's leave them out of it. But let's also here, guys, look at a state like Arizona, right? I don't think Nevada is going to flip, by the way, anytime soon. But let's look at Arizona, because Arizona is obviously a state that has a Democrat governor currently, Katie Hobbs, right? She's not very popular. She's struggling there. It has both a Republican House and a Republican legislature. But the reason I'm looking at them is because, as you saw in 2024, it is a state that took a massive swing to the right. Trump carried that state by almost 6 points. By the margins, that's not even really considered a swing state. Let's say that momentum carries over into 2026 and we manage to win the governor's race. Katie Hobbs will be up for re-election in Arizona. Okay. So guess what happens at that point? Which could happen, right? Oh, look at that math. Even worse right here, guys, for the Democrats. The same is even possible in Wisconsin. Right? I believe Tony Evers, if I'm not mistaken, is not running for re-election. He's a Democrat governor. Republicans also control the state house and state senate there. So what happens at that? See how it doesn't actually work out for you Democrats? And even if you take that off the board, right? Still a massive lead in favor here, guys, of the Republicans over the Democrats. That's why I say geography, guys, for you in this country does not actually work for you, okay? And again, this is oversimplified, I understand, but it's just to prove a greater point, which is that, yes, as I said, in an MAD, a mutually assured destruction scenario between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, yeah, guess who wins there? So if, this all goes full ahead, you can thank Gavin Newsom, guys. Okay, so I expect Kyle Kalinske, Brian Tyler Cohen, who's constantly interviewing him, saying it's so amazing to watch the Democrats fight back. Okay. Well, be sure to say thank you when the Republicans are now retaliating and winning the retaliation, because, yeah, you guys already are the gerrymanderers, and we are the actual majority in America when it comes to distribution of geography. I'm just saying. So that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.